Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews, it's your number one source. Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Episode 186, Sports Card Nation. Glad to be with you. Hope all is well. I know I do this every week now as we get closer to the National. But if you're listening to us on release day, we are 23 days away. I'm getting more excited as we get closer. Hope you are as well. Great guest today. He'll be at the National as well from This Baseball Card Life. Mike Steveline. We're going to talk about vintage cards. We're going to talk about Baseball Card Hall of Fame, which he's involved with Victor Roman and Ray from Philly. We're going to talk about that. I think it's a great thing. And we have something in common that I had no idea. So I'll just tease you with that. It kind of leads off the interview. So with that being said, don't go away. We're going to start the show right now.
This is Sports Card Nation. Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
Hey everyone, this is Alex here from Relics Cards and Collectibles in Toronto, representing the Relics squad. I just want to remind everyone, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. The show starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you ready? It's showtime.
All right, happy to be joined on the Sports Card Shop at Moco guest line by my next guest. He is, I like people who love the history of the game, kind of respect the history of the game, and I believe this gentleman does, and love what he does. We're going to talk about some of that stuff, obviously, but this baseball card life's Mike Steveline. Welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Oh, great to be with you, John.
So I know I know you're from Central New York, and I asked you off there, and you said, hey, if you want, let's save it for the podcast. So I agreed to do that. So the suspense is killing me. So I got, I'm here in Syracuse. I know, like watching you mentioned that you're originally from Central New York. So I have to ask, what part?
All right. Well, drum roll, please. I spent the first roughly 7 years of my life living on the west side suburb of Syracuse, New York.
There you go.
Called Fairmount.
Yes, Fairmount, Camillus.
Yeah.
Yep. That is cool. Small world. I don't want you, what years approximately were you here?
79 to 86. And
Okay.
I went to Onondaga Road Elementary School. If you know where that is, it's on Route 173 on the west side.
Yeah.
I called it Route 173 is Onondaga Road. So, I lived like a quarter mile south of the school, right next to a church. And that's where I was born there until I was 7. And then when I was 7 in like 86, I moved about an hour and a half south to Binghamton. Some people might be going on Google Maps right now. But then I spent a few years there, and that's where my hobby journey started. So I was there in Binghamton area, New York. Card shops all over the place, kids with trapper keepers, going to school. We all collected baseball cards. I played in Little League. So,
Yeah, I had a feeling that when you didn't want to, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to hear Syracuse. And that's funny. I'm originally myself from Brooklyn, New York. So when you were here, the dates you were here in Syracuse, I was in Brooklyn, but Syracuse is home now. So, and I'm familiar with the school, the area, and all that good stuff. And so That's cool. Small world, and that's your hometown, right? Always will be, even though you did move when you were younger. But I got to ask you, you're collecting. I know you're heavy vintage. You do anything modern too much, or I mean, what percentage would you say?
Well, I got back. I took a long break, like a lot of people do, and
Yep.
and in 2017, I opened my storage bin. I guess I'm thinking of the Storage Wars show, where I just didn't look for it in this storage place for probably 15 years. I just had all my cards in there, got them out in 2017, and I got back into it. I did open a lot of packs in 2017, did tons of modern, and then I have a better job than I did as a kid in the 80s and 90s. So I went back and bought, a bunch of the cards that I couldn't afford, back then when I was a kid. So did that. And then, as you know, as a hobby veteran, a lot of us just move backwards. And that's what I've been doing the last 2 or 3, I'd say from 2020, just kind of been moving backwards.
Yeah. So new stuff. I mean, when the new flagship comes out, is that something you're gonna crack some boxes, or at this point have you kind of stayed on the vintage side of the aisle, or does it?
I love breaking packs, but there's just so many that I want, so many cards that I want. Like, it just takes away from that budget money. And plus, I have a younger brother, and every Christmas he buys me the factory set of tops, and I put it in a binder every year, as you can see behind me. Yeah. And just do it that way.
You kind of covered there. And, I heard you talking about it too on one of your videos, what's the price of wax too, nowadays. It's tough. I've said on my show, very little new wax at this point. Actually, most of what I open is for review purposes. And some of it is sent. I've been fortunate to have, some of the companies say, hey, for review, post it up, talk about it. But generally, and believe me, I've opened plenty of wax. That came from a lot of trial and error, and then having my own store in the early 90s. I've heard another thing we have in common besides that Syracuse thread is you, like myself, you were, I heard you mention like you were going to a card store a lot, and the owner just, hired you and your brother. That was how I got my first job at a card store. I was just there so much. The owner just said, John, you're here almost every day. Why don't you just put you to work? And, I've talked about this before. We worked out like a half cash, half like store credit deal. And I wind up just spending, it was really all store credit because I spent even the cash we agreed on store merchandise. And then I did my first show at 15, and then wound up opening my first store at 20 years old. From working in the store, did you ever do shows as a dealer?
No, but the owner and myself would go to shows and buy some stuff and do some trading at that time. But we didn't ever just set up. We didn't do it. Didn't do that.
Yeah. So. Just any reason why? For me, it was sort of like a lot of my friends were like, John, I was working for the store owner's name was Rudy. And a lot of my friends were like, you got quite the inventory yourself, John. Do you ever think about doing the show? And I'm like, maybe a little, but, I work for Rudy. It's not a big deal. And they're like, you could probably make, if you sell some of what you have. And it was kind of due to peer pressure, really. I wanted to get my tax number and, did my first show at 15. It was just, I just wondered, a lot of times you hear that someone kind of works in the store and then they wind up doing their own thing eventually. I was just wondering if, maybe is it, you don't like selling cards? Like some people just can't do that. I've talked about that even on my show, Mike, is even during my store days, which was 92 to 97. One of my things, if I could have a mulligan, if you could go back, is a lot of things I got attached to, so I wouldn't put out in the showcases in the store. And, I wish I would have with some of those. And then other things I sold, and I wish that I would have traded some of those cards. wondering if there's an attachment that's why you knew, like, I would not be good at setting up at shows or opening the store.
Well, the owner was just burned out from traveling so much, to be honest, is what he told me.
Yeah.
So he just set up a card shop literally in his house in a garage and had it, taking the garage doors down and put up glass and a sign and put a bigger parking lot in front of his house. He was on a main drag in in the town that I lived in at the time. And yeah, I worked there for 7 years. It was like, a 7-year internship in cards. I mean, I was 13 to 20 years old. So I didn't know anything other than the players' names at 13 and some cards that I liked, but learning business, inventory, how to communicate with people, and that's a great skill set. And I always say, I'm a teaching assistant, and it's the one thing that I think sometimes we don't see taught in schools, right? Is some of those life skills and money management, and even how many times I go through a register and pay for something, and that someone has trouble making change. So I think a lot of that too, like getting that experience, you working in your case in the card store, me too, at a young age, and then eventually starting to do my own shows at a very young age, and then store. Like I almost think that those are skills that maybe schools almost should focus on a little bit more. How to write a check out. How to balance a checkbook, and I think it's starting to come around a little bit. We're seeing that a little bit more.
Going to step aside for a real quick break, but we'll be right back after that with more with Mike.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Sports Card Nation has returned with Mike Steveline.
The other thing I'm seeing a little bit more here from not just shows I set up at Mike, but even the ones that I go to. Like, I know you're a vintage guy. I'm a big vintage guy. I've always done vintage, but the last 2 years I've really, really pivoted heavy to that side. But I'm starting to see younger folks, right, really buy more vintage, buy players and cards of athletes that, quite frankly, were retired probably before they were even born. And I love when I see that. I love, when I'm at a show as set up and a young man or woman's buying, cards of players that I know most likely retired before, they were even born. I'll strike up a conversation, and they're telling me about it. The player and why they like them, and I appreciate that. I'm a Jackie guy. As I've said, Jackie Robinson passed away a month before I was born. He passed away in October of '72. I was born in November of '72. But growing up in Brooklyn, we learned about Jackie from a very young age, not just on the field, but obviously the person and man he was off the field, and with social justices that he was striving for. And, I learned at an early age that even though someone didn't play when you were alive, that they were the bridge. They were important to the game and the hobby, and to, pay that respect. So I think we're seeing more of that today with the younger folks today. Mm-hmm. To me, it's, it warms my heart. Your thoughts there as a vintage guy?
Well, my connection really, I love to read. Plus, I had a grandma who was born in 1919, and she passed away in 2000. And I was maybe 18, 19, gone away to college, and she even lived with my family for a while as a widow. And I didn't talk to her very much, and then she just passed away, and I really regretted not spending more time with her to learn more about her childhood and just, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, then in that era. And this vintage era that I'm really into now is the post-war era, that 48 and into the 50s. And a lot of that is just because that was the age of my grandma. And I got to just learn, I don't know, that might be a little weird, but just to kind of learn about her era of America and just how things were. And I feel more connected to her in a weird way.
Yeah.
So
no, it makes sense.
That's one of the reasons that I've really gotten to this era, plus integration into baseball with Jackie and Larry Doby and all the guys that entered in their late 40s. So it's just gotta be, you gotta have some kind of connection. If it's like a younger kid, his grandpa, or like your dad, you have to find a way to connect to that 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever era. There's got to be some kind of connection. Or maybe you just got burned, on a lot of modern. You spent a lot of money on modern, and then you lost all kinds of money, and we're like, well, let me just buy some Hall of Famers, and
and I think
all right. So
that's a great point, Mike. I think some of the, I refer to them as younger because I'm a little bit older. When I say younger, I'm even talking about people in their 20s, even, being almost 50. But even teens, I'm seeing them buy more of those vintage and like you said, post-war era cards. And I think what you just said right there is a factor. I think they're seeing, what's going on sort of on the modern market and things softening and just a lot of cards, right? And, you go to a show, and I've talked about this, you go by the cases, it's just so much of the ultra modern. It's just starting to get a blur to me. Now I do some of it still. I do carry it as a show dealer still. So I'm not trying to, trash it, which I would never do. It's still the greatest hobby, is Dr. James Beckett says. But you see it so much, and so you kind of appreciate, the stuff maybe you don't see as much, just naturally, I think, speak. I mean, that's why people go to museums and, historic places. It's just because you don't see those things all the time. And I think it's the same way in a sense with cards, is that people will tend to gravitate with stuff that's not as easy to obtain or see and that sort of thing. And so I think that's why we're seeing, I think it's a great point by you that maybe some of the younger folks are kind of doing the math, if you will, and saying, hey, this is probably a safer play and maybe even a newer challenge, right? I got to do some research. I got to learn about, I know you mentioned you're a big reader of history and baseball. The older I get, the more I tend to read now. I've always read, but I just read even more and more and try to fill in the gaps of knowledge. And I think we're seeing that even on the younger end of the hobby spectrum. And for me, I like to see that. I love it because, we can talk about, the Mike Trouts and the Fernando Tatis Jr.'s and Juan Soto's and all those great players. But, they're here because of the players that came before them. They say that themselves. That's not even me just saying that. They allude to that as well. And so it's nice to see even the hobby of collectors kind of acknowledge that too. And now in the information age, right? Google is 1.2 seconds away. And so if anybody wants to find out anything, it's pretty easy to do, and maybe not believe everything you see, but for most of it's fairly accurate, and it's easy to obtain that information, and it's free. And so do you have a player or a team like you when you which you collect that you tend to lean towards, or is it just certain eras in general?
Well, I grew up a Cleveland Indians fan, because that's really, I moved to Ohio in 92. So I was 12, 13 then. And then the shop owner, the card shop I worked at, he was a big Indians fan. And obviously in the 90s, they had some amazing teams, and shouldn't have lost to the Florida Marlins with Jose Mesa. So that made me cry. But, I was a big Indians fan for a long time. So, and I'm glad Jose Ramirez is having a great season this year, and I just So Cleveland sports in general. But the Reds and not the Reds. I guess the Bengals are doing well with Joe Burrow, and the Browns are a total mess. And you could do a whole 2-hour podcast just on the Browns right now. But
that's like a bad word to me because I'm believe it or not, even though I'm from New York City, I'm a big Steelers fan. So we got our own problems too. So I'm in no position to really throw stones at the Browns, and we got to figure out some things. But you really like Cleveland is really where your sort of your heart lies. Now, what cards? Is it just baseball, or do you do basketball, football cards at all?
I have some basketball, football cards from when I worked at the card shop, but I really haven't bought many since I got back into it in 2017. And I've been, 99% in baseball. So lots of rookie card Hall of Famers. I know you're into that too from listening to your podcast. So
that's really my PC now is to knock as many of those. I mean, there's if you count the 4 major sports, I think it's something like over 1,000 Hall of Famers combined. I'm never gonna check all those boxes, but I keep my list, and when I acquire one, I check it off, and so that's really the only thing I tend to keep. Everything else is either show inventory or to obtain some more of that PC kind of to level up. But which is probably why I don't really buy as much of the new stuff as I once did. It's just I don't PC any of it. There's nothing I'm going to really pull that I'm going to wind up keeping, and so I almost sort of avoid it just for like the reasons you said, right? For what boxes go for, and then when all the dust kind of settles and you realize like what you got, you're like, man, I'd like to do that one over again, most likely. So that's generally sort of my MO at this point.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
We are back.
For the longest time, I really didn't PC a lot of stuff, and I really thought about them. Like, for as long as I've been doing this, like, you don't PC much. Jackie Robinson, some Steeler cards, Steeler legend rookies. But after that, I did, and I'm like, that's a lot of years not to not PC too much. And so that's when I'm like, I already had a lot of that stuff, Mike, like the graded Hall of Fame rookies. And I'm like, I've sort of already got a pretty good head start. And so I just pulled some of that stuff literally out of my show inventory box and said, you know what? I'm going to PC these cards, keep them. My show inventory, still pretty, still a lot there. It's not like I really, put a big dent in it. And I'm like, I just enjoy that more than, like we said, the newer stuff for me. Right. And that's kind of the direction I'm going. And, so, I mean, I don't know. I just, you do this long enough, you kind of figure things out. Sometimes it takes you maybe longer than it should, but eventually the light bulb goes on and, decide what you want to do for sure. But, what I love with your content is, you talk about a lot of the history and those era of cards. And I appreciate that as someone who likes that stuff and respects that stuff. Any future plans with what you're doing?
Oh, well, I was at, which national was it? I'd say 20, I guess it was 2019. I'm trying to remember now that because we missed 2020.
Yeah.
It was in Chicago, and I was at one of the YouTuber get-togethers, and there were so many like amazing collectors there, and I just decided then that I wanted to build the 1951 Bowman baseball card set, and which is a huge task. There's there's 324 cards, with the Mickey and the Maze, but I wanted to get them all graded eventually, and this is going to be expensive, and I've been working on it for like 3 years now, and it's just I'm in my 40s, so it's not like I'm in my 80s and I'm not going to get to it, but yeah, I'm slowly working on it, and I get a few cards a month. I go to Baseball Reference and read about them and Saber and buy books on these players. And these are, some of them are World War II veterans. And I like reading about, World War II and D-Day and how they all connected, with Yogi Berra. He was there at D-Day and saw a lot of things from a boat, and just the stories, just the connections. I just have so much respect for that era, and then just how it connects with my favorite game. Baseball, it's just amazing. And let me think. Yeah, also, I saw an article a few years back, and this guy named E. Powell Miller is obviously a wealthy man because he owns a whole graded set of the T206. Was it like 524 or 525 with the air, the Doyle Air? And he had on display at the Detroit Institute of Art, like the whole set all graded and obviously behind glass. And I was like, wouldn't that be cool to have like the whole Bowman set like that, like an SGC, like your Jackie is, and then just put it on display? Because, these companies, especially the vintage era, 50s, 40s, like these artists and the people that created them, they created them as a set, right? To just kind of be collected all together. And that's what they wanted baseball collectors to do at the time, is to build the whole set. And I think it would be amazing to have it on display for people to see the front and back. But this is a few years down the road because I don't have them all. I'm at 140-ish right now, and
so you're almost halfway there. And I got to ask you, Mike, when you made this decision, like, hey, I'm going to do this, how many cards did you have on that day when you decided to throw your hat in the ring and say, hey,
I didn't have any. I didn't have
zero.
Any.
I'm even talking raw. Like, I know you want to do them great. How many raw 51 Bowmans did you
None.
have?
I had absolutely none at the time.
Yeah. So you started from literally, we talk about scratch. You were literally starting from scratch. You started from 0.0, and here you're halfway there. I got to ask you, right? See, it's the obvious question everyone's thinking. Like, is the Mazer mantle crossed off yet?
No, not yet. Nope. Not just because I don't want an authentic, or I'm going to save to get a bigger, a one or more is what I'm looking for. So
I'm just trying.
It's a big deal, and I know people are maybe rolling their eyes like you're crazy, but that's okay.
No, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're motivated, right? You want to do it. Like, I think that's awesome. I'd be crazy to try to do it, but I love seeing people, finish, complete missions, whether it be in life journey or hobby journeys. Like going, obviously, Maze and Mano are the two big ones. Do you have like a game plan? In other words, like, I'm going to save those two for last and make sure I can get everything else? Or is it like, hey, I'm going to look if I can get a decent one, or are you kind of waiting till you're sort of closer before you sort of put the target sights on those?
I'm kind of waiting towards the end. It'd be nice to have it as the last couple cards. There's another YouTuber named Alex Bowman 53, and he did the Bowman color set, and his last card that he intentionally got was the Pee Wee Reese.
Yeah, so, which is arguably, many people feel, one of the greatest cards ever made. Great shot. And it's actually a card I don't own, even though I do have a decent amount of Brooklyn Dodgers stuff. And my dad gave me some of his Brooklyn Dodgers stuff. My dad's 83s, but he's never had, if he's had that card when it was little, it's gone. But I've never owned that card. It's on my, even though it doesn't, it's not a rookie card. It's not Pee Wee's rookie. It's still on my list, on that PC list, just because of that card and how iconic it is. So it's one of those rare exceptions. It's not a Hall of Famer rookie. It's a Hall of Famer, but it's not his rookie. But it'll still crack my list just because how awesome of a card it is. But because how awesome of a card it is, it's not cheap. So every time I kind of do a search or look at an auction house site, usually the bids are up there, and I'm like, oh man, so maybe I'll run into a lower grade one, let's say, and the price will be right, and I couldn't add it to the PC collection. But that's the fun, right? And you mentioned the National. Do you tend to go to a mall?
Yeah, this year I'm planning to go. It'll be my 5th one. My first one was in 97, and I was working at the card shop at that time, and it was in Cleveland, and I live in Ohio and did then. So it was an hour and a half drive to it then. And then I started going, goodness. Then my first one again was in 2018. So that was like a 21-year break. So that was my second one there. And then I've gone to every one since. So looking forward to checking out Atlantic City and seeing what that town's got to offer. I've got my, hotel and car rental and all that stuff ready to roll.
Yeah, and I hope to meet you, obviously, in person. Yep. For me, what's nice, what the funny thing is, for as long as I've been doing this will only be, I think, my 4th National. So I just didn't, I didn't go back in the day. It was just kind of from where I was, and, we had the East Coast National in White Plains, which was a big show. The National was just kind of like a real big show. And so it was like, for the travel expense, I was younger. It was, I just never went. And so it wasn't until the last, 4 or 5 years that I started going, and then with the podcast going in support of that. And what's nice about this one this year in Atlantic City is, being here in Syracuse, it's just a 5.5 hour drive. And so normally, Chicago have to fly in, Cleveland have to fly in. This will be nice to actually pack up the car and kind of drive. And we have a beach house about 3.5 miles away from the convention center. My wife's actually making a trip. She's not into cards, but she'll hang out at the beach with an umbrella and a book and a beverage, and just it'll be a true vacation for her, and it'll be a hobby vacation for the rest of us. And it'd be nice because I'd be able to bring more stuff than I would normally would, flying in, just having, nothing wrong with a hotel room. I actually enjoy traveling, and hotels don't bother me, but they'd be kind of in the house setting, and that'll be nice too. And so, that was the one that was canceled, when COVID hit, that Atlantic City didn't get it that year. And so now they got it back. And I've been to Atlantic City, Mike, but never, obviously not for, I've never been there for, the National. So it'll be interesting knowing how it's, set up at other places, kind of to see how it, how the venue goes.
Yeah. Fun fact. I actually walked by you and hobby great Rich Klein at the Chicago National. He was pulling like a suitcase and you were helping him out to get out.
We were just walking in.
I think you guys were walking actually out at the time. Out. And I was like, wow, that's John. He could be like a lineman in the NFL. He's a bigger guy than I thought. Because we, on Hobby Hotline and stuff, all I see is like your chest and up. I'm like, yeah, wasted up. I'm like, whoa, that's a big dude. But I didn't say anything. You guys looked like you were on a mission.
Well, listen, let's make that happen this year.
Yeah, I'll tap you on the shoulder next time.
Yeah, you should have did it then. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. Like I might look like a linebacker, I'm not gonna tackle you. I mean, I did play football, but those days are long gone. So you're safe. And
right,
by all
good.
means, I love meeting folks and talking hobby, talking life. I'm a people person, and so just for what I do for real work, for the content creation, the hobby, I'll talk your ear off. You'll wind up being like, "Hey, man, I got to run." So maybe, but don't hesitate, and that goes for anybody, right? I'm going to be there all week, so I always joke like, when I'm there all week, probably if you had like a stopwatch and every time I'm conversating with somebody or someone, and you click it almost like a chess clock, probably one of those, 4 or 5 days is just conversations with hobbyists.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
And that's what it's about, right? The tagline of the show is the hobby is the people, right? It's the stories, the people. Like, I get it. We're here because of the cards. That's the common theme, the common thread. And no one's bigger than the cards. I agree. But, the people you meet, the stories behind how you acquire cards, the conversations you have, that's so important. And I don't belittle that fact. And so I just love, talking with people. And, I've had someone, I was standing in line talking to someone else, and a person behind me who never saw me, tapped me on the shoulder, talking about tapping you on the shoulder. And he's like, "Are you John Newman?" And I was like, "What's this about?" I didn't say that, but I was thinking that. And, with my humor, I'm like, "Are you the FBI?" And he goes, "No." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm John Newman." And, that's just how I like to mess with. And he goes, "Man, I recognize your voice. I listen to your podcast all the time." So and that was crazy to me, Mike. Like, I'm going to put my pants on one leg at a time. Like, that stuff just humbles me. And just, I love when I get that feedback, even in email form. Hey, I love the show. Even some of the not, hey, I disagreed with you when you said this. Here's why. Like, I love all that banter, good and bad. But the fact that somebody to think like just on vocals alone, which I don't actually like my voice treat though. Like that really, like I was shocked. And but it's all that kind of stuff, and I just I just love conversating, and again with the greatest hobby, and it's just for me, and I think for you, you circle that week, right? Every year in the calendar, it's really about the same time every year. So it's for me now, what I do for work now as a teaching assistant, we have summers off if we want. Now there's summer school, which they asked me to teach, and I told them, listen, I'll teach summer school every year, except this 1 week almost every year. So if you can work around that, and they said that should be no problem. So it's kind of nice, and it's a hobby vacation, and it's fun. It's fun, right? We look forward to it, and when it's over, it goes quick. And when it's over, right, what do? Start counting down the days all over again to the next one at the next city. And so going into this one, going back to you and going to the national is like, knocking some of these 51 Bowmans off. Is that your kind of your main focus?
Absolutely. And just any card that I see in great condition at a decent price that it's on my list. There's so many great cards that I want that I don't own, especially vintage cards that, just see them in the right condition, and, I'll go for it if I can afford it.
Yep.
So.
Now, will you buy them raw and then sub them yourself too? Okay. I was going to say that might be the best in some cases. I mean, not obviously if you can find them slabbed and at a decent price, but I think sometimes the best play is to even, buy them cheaper, ungraded, and then just get them graded, and then you're good.
Yeah, either way. I mean, the card's the card, right? And it's just if you're familiar with the set, it's really hard to find them centered, especially without scratches in focus and without wax on the back. And that's the tough part. I mean, I'd have been finished with the whole set if I just did lots of PSA 1s and 2s a while ago, but I'm just waiting and trying to find the best copies that I can afford.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have like a baseline, like, hey, I want to keep it like graded 3 and up, 4 and up? Do you have sort of a number you don't want to go below if you can help it?
Yeah, like some of my Hall of Famers are like 4.5s. I mean, I even have a Billy Southworth and an 8. I mean, it's the lower ones, but the commons, it's 6s, 7s, 8s. I even have an 8.5, which was kind of crazy, and I had that one graded myself. But I'm not trying to get all 8s and stuff like that. It's just nice eye appeal. If the corners are a little, not square, that's all right. It's just big eye appeal for me. That's why
even when going to my Jackie that I got recently, that was my thing. Like I knew I wasn't going to afford a high grade, but even these 1s and 1.5s and 2s, many of them, like you look at it and you're like, I mean, even the one I got, I mean, everyone thinks their cards are sometimes in better shape than they are, but like looking at it, I'm like, I'm even tempted to like have it regraded. Like it's close, but I'm just glad to own it. So I'm not worried about another half point or a point potentially. Maybe if I was looking to sell it potentially, but that's not why I acquired it. So I'm not worried about it too much. I'm glad eye appeal. You said it yourself right there. I think that's when you can get especially a card like that has that. I was in Dallas the last month, and I had, while I was in Dallas, the card actually, the Jackie was here still in its box. My wife signed for it. It came when I wasn't home. Thankfully, she was home. But I was at the Dallas show, and there was 4 or 5 1s and 2s there. And, I would look at them and just ask them what they wanted. Some of them were really, just kind of beat up and kind of rough shape, and quite frankly asking for more than what mine cost me, and I was just kind of gauging what kind of deal I might have made or not made. And so I felt after talking to those 4 or 5 folks, I felt a lot better about pulling the trigger finally. And my own fault that it cost me as much as it did, Mike, because I had opportunities, as I've said on the show, to get it at a lot lesser threshold. And I always just thought I'll get it another day. It'll be there. And I had some other thoughts on my mind. But, again, you learn sometimes, in hindsight, the hard way. So cost a little more out of my bank account. But now, I'm kind of looking forward to going to the National without that sort of hovering over my head, because I had kind of set the National as the deadline to finally like acquire this card. And I'm sort of, now I had to, tighten up the account and not buy anything for, 40 days from, going into the National, so I can buy something at the National. But I kind of like going in there sort of without that self-appointed pressure. Like you have to, by the time you leave here, you have to have, the Jackie Leaf. Now that I've already, you can kind of go in there. I don't have another card that has that sort of sense of urgency. So you can kind of, for me, take a deep breath and just, I always go in. I don't know how you're doing the 51 sets, so that's a different, but I'm not a set guy at this point. I used to be, but not anymore. So I have like 6 cards on that, graded rookie Hall of Famer list that are sort of ones I kind of want to acquire next. I have more than 6 that I don't have, plenty more, but I always kind of have 6 that I try to get next. And my goal is, to knock 1 or 2 off by the end of the show, if possible. 3 would be tremendous. I'm not expecting that or anticipating that, just financial reasons why. But so if I can come out of there 1 or 2, I'll be fine. And like I said, getting 1 or 2 of those cards, meeting folks like yourself and lots of other people, either for the first time or again, right? It's that week again. I've said this on the show. I call it the Super Bowl of the hobby. You look forward to that week every year. I've heard people call it a family reunion, in a hobby sense, and it really is. And so between getting 1 or 2 cards and all the people you meet and the fun you have, going to dinner and talking to people, it's going to be a fun week. And before you know it, it's over, right? And then here we are counting days again. So is there, obviously the 51 Bowman set is kind of your main focus. Do you have anything else that you're on top of that you're going?
The Reggie Jackson rookie would be great if I can find a nice centered one. Those ones are always cut pretty off, so that whole set is really tough there. That was one of the big ones. Let me think of anything else. Oh, and by the way, getting my 51 set graded, part of it was just for authentic, just to make sure the card wasn't trimmed or doesn't have ink on it, or just for authentication purposes is one of the big reasons, and also insurance purposes too, right? Like you want to know what your set is worth in case something bad happens. So just so many things would catch my eye. I'd love to have the 72 Topps traded Joe Morgan, the ones with the big traded stamps on it, the high numbered there. I don't have that one. And his Joe Morgan's second year card, I'd love to have a nice copy of that. I have a pretty beat up one right now. So there's just so many.
It
goes on and on and on.
It'll never end, but we'll end before the list does. I always joke, and hopefully that's later than sooner. Obviously,
you are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at MidwestBoxBreaks.
Hey folks, John here. Just wanted to remind you, use the discount code MBB10 for 10% off your first order at MidwestBoxBreaks.com.
We are back.
All right, Mike, we're kind of coming down to the home stretch. I know you're involved with the Baseball Card Hall of Fame. I think it's awesome. I voted. I think last year, obviously again this year. You've grown it. The thing has gained some momentum each year. You're doing this now, and I mean, just it's kind of quick. How did this thing start? I know it's with Ray from Philly, Victor Roman, yourself. Kind of, how did this get off the ground and become what we know it as today? Which is, like I said, it's gained some steam for sure.
Well, Ray from Philly's the founder. He did the first 3 years himself, 2018, 19, and 20. And he came to me and Victor and asked for some help, just because it was kind of just getting overwhelming, just how much work it actually takes to organize everything. And we joined up and just did some video conferencing. And I'm more of a tech guy, so I got the whole voting on Google Forums worked out, and that worked out well. And we're just a good team. Victor's great at with him being a hobby palooza with writing and just speaking and his connections there. And same with Ray, has a a great following and loves baseball, and obviously the Phillies and Mike Schmidt. And yeah, we just connected over YouTube. It's actually going to be the first time I'll actually meet Ray in person.
There you go. Yeah.
And at the National here and at the end of July. So I'm really looking forward to that. And he told me he's a hugger, so I'm gonna have to prepare
I can be a hugger. It's funny.
Yeah.
I can be a hugger too, depending on if it's not awkward and stuff. But I'm a touchy feely, like shake your hand, give you a hug, even a side hug, whatever the case may be. I think I get that from my dad. My dad's like a super affectionate guy. I remember even when I was a kid, my friends would come over. And my dad would hey man, good to see you. And I remember my friends like, man, your dad's like kind of like touchy. I'm like, he's just this super affectionate dude. Don't
take it personal.
And he's like that with everybody. And so I'm not that bad as like my dad. I'm getting a little bit of that from him. I'm just happy to see people, happy to talk to people. And so I try to, show that and wear my emotions on the sleeve. So, yeah, it'll be fun. Like you said, meeting people for the first time, and love what you do. I'm going to vote in that every year. If you ever need anything, what I'd like to do, I'll say this now, even live, what I'd like to even do when it's voting time next year or before, have all you guys on the show. And
that'd be awesome. We'd appreciate that a lot.
Remind me. I won't forget, but remind me anyway, Mike. And we'll do a special episode, Sports Card Nation. A month or 6 weeks out from the show, and we'll go over the 30-40 candidates. And talk about the voting and get that word out there. It's already kind of gaining a lot of steam momentum. Let's get it even bigger. I think it's a great idea. And I'd love to see, I think I mentioned this on Hobby Hotline. I don't think it was this show. I think it was a Hobby Hotline episode. But I'll say it on this show now is what I'd love to see the actual, somebody, you guys even make a baseball card Hall of Fame, an actual building where the cards that are inducted are there, even if they're on loan from somebody, even if it's a card no one of you three owns, but can be, loaned and obviously in a case where it's safe and protected. But I mean, imagine something like that happening where you actually have, the building itself, or even the Hall of Fame itself, the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is not far, as from me here in Syracuse and Cooperstown. They got the Shoebox Treasures wing, right? They do have sort of some Holy Grail cards section there, but I'd love to see them maybe in coordination with you guys and what you've done, do that. You run the show, so to speak, and then when those cards are announced, the inductees, they put them on display there, whether that's somebody loaning them. I mean, I'm not far away. If I happen to have one of those on the list and it's in my PC, I would be honored to have them have it. It's still my card. It's probably going to have my name. Hey, this on loan from John Newman, right? There's a lot of the things on there. I'd be glad to do that, especially if it's not in my show inventory anyway. And I'm an hour and 10 minutes away if I tend to miss it. Maybe I don't know how they do that. Maybe they give me free admission. I can visit my card anytime I want to. But I would love to see something like that where what you're doing now is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great. But even take it to that next step where there's actually the cards that are inducted, much like the players have, players get inducted, they have either the plaque or the bust, depending on the sport. But with the cards, the actual cards get on that display, whether it's on a wall, behind something where obviously the risk of theft is negated or, very difficult to do. I'd love to see. And I think, I talked about if I had a card that was on that list, I would gladly donate, for display to put it on loan. I think a lot of people would potentially do that. And I don't think it's as far fetched as some might be listening and say, John, that's sort of I don't think it's that far fetched. It takes some coordination, some communication, and someone who willing to do it. But I think it's not impossible. And I imagine that. I mean, just and I'm biased too because I'm so close. I can check it out, pretty much almost any day I really wanted to. So
yeah, I mean, you could, while you were speaking, I just thought of, you could call up one of those high roller auction houses, Heritage or Golden, and they've got the connections to the guys that have the cards. They could loan them out and show them.
Yes,
at the national. I think every year
even
have it.
Even if
there.
Great point. Even if it's take out the Hall of Fame, which is close to me, and I'm biased. Even if it was, you announced the 10 cards before the national. If the national, even if it's just the 10 cards for that year, they do some kind of 2022 baseball card Hall of Fame. This is this year's class. Here's the 10, and have those 10 cards there. Even if maybe they're in, just like you said, Heritage has that big display with the armed guards that look at you like waiting to shoot you.
Don't get too close there, Sonny. Yeah,
they look like they're ready, like they're almost like they're almost like hoping you. Yeah, I was like, go ahead, touch it. But all joking aside, great point. Like even if it's just for that, 4, 5, 6 days, make it part of something already there. But acknowledge, the work you guys are doing. I think people would love that. I'm sure you guys would. I would. I'm sure a lot of people would. Imagine what that would do for what you're doing, right? Talk about buzz. I mean, at the national, right? I mean, just incredible. And I'm not saying it's easy. I guess it's easy for me and you to talk about it on the show, but I don't think it's as hard as other people might think it is. It just takes some coordination, some communication, and someone that really, wants to do. And I think it would be a great attraction. I think it would get more people voting, and then they can say, hey, I voted for that card. Let's check it out. We're going into national anyway. Let's check out the results. And
the security is already there. The audience is already
everything.
There.
Yeah, they don't have to add anything other than the cards and the space to put 10 cards out if they only want to do just each year's class. And if that's that's great. I think that's great. It'll create a buzz and it'll create debate, right? You got two guys looking at the 10 cards like, oh, that one, just like regular Hall of Fames, right? That one shouldn't have got in. That card didn't get in this year. I voted for that. Maybe next year, right? I love that stuff. I mean, that's just great stuff. And, if it happens, I'm going to take partial credit for it. But,
that's fine. You have more hobby connections than I do.
Well, I don't know, but I'd love to see it. I think it's just a great thing, right? We got Hall of Fames for almost everything now, right? Toy Hall of Fame, advertising Hall of Fame, all the sports obviously have their, accolades and Hall of Fames. Why not, baseball cards? You want, someone can even piggyback off that. We can do it, football card and other sports and go from there. I think it's just great and something to think about. And again, if you need any help, I'm not a miracle worker, but I'd love to whatever you need if it's in my power.
I appreciate it. Ray and Victor say thank you also. So
yeah,
we love your support.
Yeah, and again, worse, in the very least next year before whatever you did, the 4 to 6 weeks or whatever, we'll do a baseball card Hall of Fame special edition of Sports Card Nation. We'll talk about the candidates and go through them and the whole show will just be dedicated to that and get the word out there. It's starting to, like I said, steamroll anyway. We'll push it down the hill even faster. So that's a promise, and hold me to it, and we'll get it done.
Awesome. Yeah, it's community driven. It's just about connecting collectors together and learning about the history of our great hobby, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, it's work for the committee, but it's just for love for the hobby and for the
it's
community.
a labor of love, right? Labor of
Absolutely.
love. All right, Mike. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'll listen this year. Tap me on the shoulder. Don't, I'm not going to bite you. And we'll chat. We'll talk more about this kind of stuff and getting that stuff going. And look forward to meeting you. I always give the guests the final word. Give out your YouTube channel, social media, anything you want to share where people can see what this baseball card life's all about. What you go ahead.
I would just say, first of all, just go on YouTube and type in sports cards or baseball cards and just connect with. There's so many collectors and channels out there, and just start exploring that. I mean, I have a channel. The last few months I haven't been able to upload as much as I wanted for other life reasons. But just go and check out the community. There's so many people out there. If they're opening packs or just doing podcasts like yourself. Yes, Sports Card Nation is on YouTube, so go and subscribe to the John there too, and just explore, different collectors and their passion. And it's addicting to see how people love their teams, their Steelers, their Browns, or whoever. But it's about community and connecting with others. So
great point. And no matter whatever way you hobby, modern, ultra modern, vintage, pre-war, post-war, there's content for everybody. So if you're not finding it, I'm going to be mean here and say you're not looking hard enough. It exists, believe me. So,
I love all eras. You just can't buy everything. And I guess the place I'm most active is on Instagram. So it's just this baseball card life on Instagram. So that's where I post most often. So
All right, Mike. Well, thank you, man. Thanks for making some time for us. I'll see you here in about 30 days. And
I'm ready.
Keep going. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff we talked about tonight. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with some closing thoughts. Don't go away.
Like the athletes we admire, the Sports Card Shop is changing the game. We're not launching threes, bombing drives, or hitting dingers, but we have built a unique gathering spot for all collectors to trade cards, talk sports, play games, and watch their favorite athletes on the big screens. Yes, we've partnered with Panini, Upper Deck, Leaf, Topps, Fanatics, Pokemon, and others to bring you all the latest in sealed wax and singles. But the Sports Card Shop in New Buffalo, Michigan is much, much more. Our recent expansion brings collectible sneakers, Hot Wheels, and more sports and entertainment memorabilia into the mix. Our new Collector's Cave game room is the perfect place to throw a rip party, bring friends, rip packs, trade cards, play billiards, ping pong, shuffleboard, classic arcade, and Xbox games, all while watching your favorite sport on TV. Visit us at thesportscardshop.com. Follow us on social @_sportscardshop, or better yet, visit us in person to learn about special events, party packages, new products, and everything we're doing for you. The Sports Card Shop, connecting people, sports, and the hobby around the world.
All right, that's a wrap for this week's episode. As always, want to thank our guest today, that being Mike Steveline, This Baseball Card Life. Check him out on his YouTube channel. Check out their Baseball Card Hall of Fame, which is a great thing that I'm surprised hasn't been done. It took this long to get it done, but those three guys, Ray, Mike, and Victor, did get it done, and look forward to meeting Mike in person at the National. And like I said in the open, we're 23 days away from that event and getting close, and I'm looking forward to it. Get to drive in, don't have to take a plane, can bring some more stuff. Going to be staying in a house, and just really looking forward to getting away for the week and meeting some folks for the first time, seeing some people again, buying a few cards, and having a great time. And I hope you're in that same boat, and hope to see you there. So with that being said, hope everyone is well, stay safe, and we'll see you here for another episode of Sports Card Nation next week. Matter of fact, a little promo of that next week's Sports Card Nation, having my buddy Mike Moynihan join me. We're going to do a in-depth, day-by-day national preview. So we're going to go starting with Tuesday/Wednesday all the way through Sunday and tell you all the events. We're going to go through all the signers, tips, tricks, and stuff to maybe make your national experience potentially even better. You're going to have a great time without me and Mike giving you some help, but we're going to deep dive the national next week and help you help you with something you didn't know or at least refresh you anyway. So don't miss that. That's next Friday on Sports Card Nation, our national preview show. I usually do it solo, but said, man, I'm going to have Mike join me. He loves it just as much as me, and so hope you enjoy that show on next Friday.
Always remember that the hobby is the people.